Welcome back to the Mark Moses Show, only right here on Sports Radio 95.9 The Fan. And right now here on the Club 52 hotline to talk Florida Gator football. Great friend up there in Gainesville. His name is Scott Carter with GatorsZone.com, the official website of the Florida Gators. Scott, how you doing today, man?
Hey, Mark, doing well. Just getting ready for the Steve Spurrier coming back to Gainesville on Saturday to face the Gators.
Is that a big deal? Because I know it's been a couple years. Is it a big rivalry game? I mean, what's your take on Florida, South Carolina as a rivalry?
The rivalry, I think it's certainly been magnified since Spurrier went there. Before that, you can't really consider it a great rivalry. But, when you factor in everything that Steve Spurrier means to Florida and their fans, and, he had his moment down here in 2010 when he won the SEC East with that big victory against the Gators. So that kind of turned it up. And, if you think back even to 2005, his first year there, he beat Florida and Urban Meyer's first year. So they've had a few matchups that have been intriguing since then. And, he's just got a special place. I mean, he's always going to be, whenever he walks into town, people pay attention because of who he is.
Yeah, he's got a statue. You're not joking around. Scott Carter, Gator Zone. Did you ever think we'd be in this situation 3 weeks later after that Missouri loss where people are chanting Fire Muschamp? And now it's like, oh, yeah, the Gators will probably win this game. I mean, what happened? Did I miss something? What's going on?
Well, I mean, Georgia happened and Treon Harris happened. And, against Georgia, obviously, they had a win. They got a win that really few people saw coming. I mean, I can't sit here and say that I expected them to win that game. And the way they won it just really dominated Georgia physically and, ran for 418 yards. And obviously for Muschamp, it was a big victory because that's his alma mater. He'd never won that game in his 3 previous seasons. So fans, well before the Missouri game went really south, they had that game as a very important one for Muschamp this season. So that helped. And then, Treon Harris kind of came along against Vanderbilt and showed that maybe he has some tools. Maybe this is the quarterback that Florida has kind of been missing under Muschamp. It's still early, but there's some hope there now. And like you said, it's hard to believe where the Gators sit now. They go into this game and still, I would say slim hopes of the SEC East, but it's not unreasonable to think that things could fall their way. Starting with, they have to beat Vanderbilt, and it certainly turned the tide in a positive direction, one that was much needed, and has made it an interesting past couple of weeks.
We're here with Scott Carter, GatorsZone.com. It's funny you bring up Atlanta. Are you like me where you're probably at a meeting with your staff and you're like, oh, wait a minute, we might need to have the first Saturday open in December. Are you guys having that meeting now?
Yeah, I mean, it's something you have to look at because, certainly, before Georgia, I think most people figure, okay, that's going to be definitely open. You don't have to worry about it. And then some things have fallen since then that at least makes it interesting. Like I said, Florida's still going to have to get some help. And, I don't know what the odds of them actually making it to Atlanta are. I haven't actually seen them, but they still exist, which for this team this season, I guess says something. If I've talked to different people about this, if it somehow did turn out that they make it to Atlanta, I mean, it's definitely probably be the biggest in-season turnaround in Florida football history. One of the more unlikely ones probably ever.
Could you make a case that Georgia win is maybe top 3 biggest wins for Will Muschamp in his coaching career?
Oh, I think certainly. I mean, really, I think other than the Florida State win in 2012, I would say that maybe is his biggest win. Because, Georgia, we all know the history there with Florida, Georgia, and, of course, the whole wrinkle when Muschamp was hired being that he was a Georgia player. I mean, that never really – I think it took a lot of time for some Florida people to maybe get their heads around that. But he finally beat them, and, it did take a lot of the heat off of him and this team, and then winning at Vandy. I mean, I still – there's some things that still probably need to go their way to keep that heat off, but at the same time, I think it's been a positive response to how the team responded to some of that adversity after the Missouri loss. And if nothing else, it really did show that, you hear coaches talk about all the time how, my team's still playing hard, they're not quitting. And, I think what they've done the last 2 weeks kind of proves that on the field.
Well, here's Scott Carter, Gator Zone, talking Florida Gator football on the Club 52 hotline. It's interesting with Muschamp. I'm sticking with him real quick. A couple weeks ago, like you said, after the Missouri loss, he's at the podium talking about how he should tell his son, answering the question, why are people saying he should be fired? What's he like now at the press conferences? Is he out like telling jokes, buying drinks like Joe Madden? What's he doing?
I don't think he's pulled out the free tab yet, but, he certainly, I wouldn't say a lot has changed. I think you can tell maybe some of the pressure has been relieved, because anytime you come off a loss like Missouri and then you have a bye week, you kind of just have to stew in it for 2 weeks. But that was a tension-filled 2 weeks, and they did exactly what they had to do. They had to beat Georgia, because after that, I don't know what would have happened if they lost that game. There's, everybody has their scenarios. Would it have been his last game? I just don't know, but I do know that they needed to win that game to help him out, and now Treon Harris, that's come into play, and I think people for the first time in a while are kind of like, hey, maybe the Gators are onto something here, and there's some positivity around the program, which has certainly been lacking, the first half of the season. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. These next 3 games left, and a couple of big ones with South Carolina and Florida State still out there.
Did you vote for South Carolina to win the East like I did back in July? Come on, you can admit it.
They were number 2. I think I had Georgia. I just thought Georgia, with Todd Gurley, I knew what kind of a team they were. But South Carolina, they've been, no other way to say it. I think while a lot of people may have had Florida pegged as the most disappointing team in the East a couple weeks ago, I think South Carolina has taken over that. They're getting it done offensively with Dylan Thompson at quarterback and Mike Davis, and they're scoring points and rolling up yards like Spurrier used to do at Florida, but they just have not had any success defensively. And, to be 4-5 here, I think they're looking at Spurrier's, potentially his first losing season there, and really only the second losing season he's ever had in college coaching. And the other one you got to go all the way back to 1987 when his first year at Duke. So it's been a tough year up there, but, there's nothing that Spurrier would like more than to come down here and beat the Gators on Saturday.
Well, that's too bad. The Gators need a win, okay? We're here with Scott Carter, Gatorzone.com. I feel like the Heisman race has been kind of quiet, so I'd like to nominate Treon Harris for the Heisman Trophy. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think he's going to get in that race, Mark, but I do think if he keeps on winning, he could get, there needs to be some kind of award for mid-season quarterback change. I don't know if that exists, but
all right, I'll take it. All right, he completed 3 passes against Georgia, 11 against Vandy. So we got South Carolina. Over and under, he'll complete 15 to improve on his passer rating.
I think that's the same. I'll take 15 this week against South Carolina. One thing what we've seen with him, you're right, he didn't throw the ball at all. They asked him basically against Georgia to be really good at your handoffs, and Matt Jones and Kevin Taylor did the rest. But against Vanderbilt, he was asked to do some things in the passing game. I think of his 13 completions, 10 went for first downs. And one of the most telling stats I've come up with just since they made this change, if you factor in every completion he's made this year, they're averaging 18 yards per completion, whereas at Jeff Driscoll, they were 9.6 yards per completion. So that just says a lot that he's pretty accurate down the field, and that they're throwing down the field more, and some guys are making plays for him. And that's been sorely missing in the Florida offense. So it's still early to really gauge what the big picture is for him, but you have to be impressed with the way he's handled the situation so far.
What about the play of Kelvin Taylor? I feel like, I know Harris is getting a lot of the love here, but I feel like when Taylor starts going, he makes a couple plays, then everything starts clicking. What are your thoughts on how Taylor's played of late?
He's playing the best we've seen him, at Florida. He's a guy that, I've always wondered. I don't know if he's like a 20 to 25 carry back per game. Although he did have that against Georgia, he's a little undersized, but he's got very quick feet, very shifty. Once he gets a hole, he's hard to tackle. He showed off some of that speed in the Georgia game with the 65-yard touchdown, and then if you go back to last week at Vanderbilt, he scored the first touchdown on a 13-yard run. Made a couple of really nice moves to get into the end zone there. He's definitely a spark plug, and you can tell he is a guy that, he seems to be tight with Treon Harris and seems to be inspired with his play of late. So that's another, I guess, fringe benefit of going to Harris here, this stage of the season.
Well, I love me some Kelvin Taylor. And since you work for the university, can you get me an in there with the equipment manager and get me a Kelvin Taylor jersey? Is this possible for studio use?
Hey, man, I'll see what I can do. Jeff McGrew, he's from down in your neck of the woods. I think he's a Melbourne guy. So I know he is from that area. So, hey, maybe we can work that, man.
Oh, I love it. Okay, now we're talking here. I love that. And let's end with this. And like we said, Gators have South Carolina at noon with the kickoff. You can hear it right here on the Fan. Does Gator basketball start? Am I missing something here? I didn't see this coming.
I know. It's hard to believe that basketball season is here. But, yeah, Billy D's team opens the season Friday night at home against William & Mary. And, it's a different look team. You lost those 4 seniors from last year's team that, made it such a special season. Won 30 in a row, made it all the way to the Final Four. And they're kind of reloading, but they have some guys that people are familiar with, and Michael Frazier and Dorian Finney-Smith, and some new guys they're excited about. And, Alex Murphy transferred in from Duke. You have Devin Robinson, a true freshman. And, of course, Chris Walker, who you saw a little bit of last year as a role player, but a physically gifted guy who, is almost draft lotteries, going into the preseason here. So he's a guy that's just all going to depend on how he develops. But they have a chance to be a pretty good team again. With Donovan, one thing I've learned just watching his teams, they get so much better from the start of the season to the end of the season. So the team that you see Friday is probably going to look a lot different than the one come March.
Good stuff. I've already penciled, I think it's early February, Saturday night, 9 p.m., Gators host Kentucky. I will be there, my friend. I can't wait. Oh,
That'll
man.
be a fun atmosphere. That's a good one to pick.
Oh, yeah. You're not joking. Tickets are not available right now. That's what I imagine. Scott Carter, Gator Zone, thank you so much for coming on, and enjoy the game this Saturday.
Mark, thanks for having me.